Welcome back to another episode of Azrael Reacts. I'm your boy Azrael, and man, the great deception. Slavery, the greatest deception, deceive indigenous mind to make them forget and not remember where they come from, or from kings to slaves. Like I keep saying, that is a long title, and I think I'm right just start saying welcome back to the From Kings to Slaves series. But yeah, man, I just keep finding more and more stuff, so I'm just gonna keep bringing it to you guys. The more I find, the more I bring in. I got more, and there is more to come. But hey, if you liked the video, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe for your brother, because every little bit helps us out. And I thank you guys so much. But let's get into these videos.
I want to be like that guy, like, breaking news! You're of Atlantean, Olmec, Oscakwala, and Moors descendant and lineage, bloodline, DNA, soul tribe. Things are about to get real.
You are on it.
Listen to
Groups
this.
listed: Choctaw, Cherokee, Yamasee, Creek, Muskogee, Seminole, Blackfoot, and especially the Washita Moors, are deeply tied to the Moorish and Atlantean bloodlines that were already present in Turtle Island, North America, long before Columbus or European settlers. These tribes carried a high spiritual and scientific knowledge from the ancient world, Mu, Atlantis, Kemet, and were later reclassified as Native American to hide their Moorish African identities. Now, to break it down clearly, Trail of Tears, 1830s, the Indian Removal Act under Andrew Jackson forced these tribes, especially the 5 civilized tribes, Choctaw, Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, to walk from their original homelands, southeast U.S., to Indian Territory, what is now Oklahoma. After arriving, these tribes who had Moorish bloodlines began to rebuild, establishing very prosperous towns and cities, including Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Black Wall Street bombing, 1921. The descendants of these displaced native Moorish tribes, along with freedmen and other Moors, had become so successful that the U.S. government and local whites attacked. The 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, bombing and burning of Black Wall Street, was a direct attack on the rising sovereignty, wealth, and power of these Moors. Washita Moors, particularly important.
The history that has been erased in our nation, and in particular with the Native Americans, happened because it didn't fit the story they created, Manifest Destiny. It only works when Indians were savages, and they had to have savages for commerce and government to expand. The ancient artifacts prove otherwise. Why aren't we looking into those? Peter Wyrick, he's a guy who surveyed the Newark Earthworks. He was digging into a mound near those earthworks, and he found a wooden coffin made of oak. They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box. It was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented shut here. This, by the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man inside, a little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here at first they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found some rabbis living in the area, and the rabbis looked at that, and they could read it. They said it was an old kind of block Hebrew, and it was a rendition of the 10 Commandments. Now, this is another piece. Block Hebrew. They said they'd never seen anything like it. Mainstream archaeologists at the time called this a hoax. But then in 1900, or just about after 1900, in Israel, they found the same block-style Hebrew writing. Mainstream archaeologists still dismissed the findings. They found it in Israel, and they found it in Ohio. But there was another stone that they found that they couldn't argue. This is the Bat Creek stone. It was found during the course of an official Smithsonian evacuation. The Smithsonian didn't understand the meaning of the writing on the stone. They thought it was Cherokee, since it came from Cherokee country. They didn't realize that it's actually Hebrew. They had published this originally upside down. They threw it in a box at the bottom of the Smithsonian, put it in the basement. Many years later, a scholar took it out of the box, looked at it, and went, oh my gosh, it's upside down. It's Phoenician, ancient Hebrew. So what's going on here? What is that about? Where is that history? 1882, 1883. This is John Wesley Howell. This is an original copy. John Wesley Howell in 1789. Again, this is Powell. This is the director of the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian Institute. He said this. Artifacts found prior to Christopher Columbus's arrival would be considered illegitimate by the Smithsonian. Only the savage Indian culture would be observed, and this created the artificial barrier to science. Only the savage. Science was colluding with government because of commerce, and religion was involved. Now, why do I tell you all this stuff? Not because I'm an Indian expert or anything else. You got to do your own homework. I just found out about this stuff. I'm amazed by it. To find more, visit the website, Lost Civilization.
Could this be the real Uncle Sam? It's always been about land, resources, minerals, and water. Remember that. Shout out to Tia. This is William E. Benson. He is responsible for one of the first so-called black-owned railroads in the country. And runner-up for the Cowaliga community. They had their own stores, they had their own post office, they had their own schools. You see how it says partial group of teachers, right? This is him right here. And what's so interesting is they wasn't going to tell you he was sitting right in your face the whole time. Cowaliga is an Indian word. These are Muskogee. Now, y'all know when they use the word founded, those people were already there. That's real cute. As y'all can see, he was focused on making sure his community was good and they had what they needed. That's his bottom line for me right here. Payments may be made in cash or its equivalent in lint cotton and will fall due on October 1st. The land is capable of raising a great variety of crops. Like I keep saying, were we slaves or were we just working our own land? Why would this man take lint cotton as a form of payment? And as y'all can see up here, the company operates a railroad. Do y'all know how important railroads are? Go back to Uncle Sam, a pioneer of the Cowaliga community. These are the alleged grandchildren of Uncle Sam. Look at all those Negro faces. And this is when everything started to go left. They started burning our schools down. Remember that railroad? It's now called Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railroad. Real convenient, the same Dixie Line Railroad. I just want y'all to pause and really take a good look at this picture because this was the beginning of our end. Came for the whole company. This is what happens when you allow people to invest in your shit. There's loopholes. But I told y'all, we got the railroad. We got the land, right? We got the fertile land. Not happy with the fact that these reclassified Indians keep coming back. So you know what they did? They took this man's whole community, took his railroad, took his land and minerals, waited for him to pass away, and they flooded the whole town.
Alright, look, check this out. I'm gonna make this real short. Our story begins with an ethnic group which both authors belong. The Melungeons are people who have been dwelling in the Appalachian Mountains on the southeastern United States for between 300 and 500 years. The origins have been subject of intense speculation for at least 3 centuries. Why? Because they have dark skin, black or brown straight hair, dark or blue eyes, and European features. Wait a minute. I said European. Just because I said European, does that mean YT? Wait, no. Why? Because they had dark skin, black, dark brown, straight brown or blue eyes and European features. Oh, that's not all. They were Jewish and Moorish communities that began as far as 1540. Okay, and where is this? One of the factors delaying accurate ethnic identification of the Melungeons was that several carried Scottish or Scots Irish surnames. Codwell, Kennedy. That doesn't sound like a... Wait a minute.
So I thought DNA testing for your ethnicity is not real, but this person says I need to take a DNA test and I'm not indigenous. But my DNA test literally says I am indigenous. So which one is it? Is DNA testing for your ethnicity real or not?
Some of your most powerful ancestors to ever revolt and defeat these Spanish that run the world to this day, these elites, they called them Haitians. Remember, ain't no such thing as Haitians, Africans, all them titles. We just won. But they put them titles on us to make us think it's different. No, you are the Haitians and the Haitians are you. If you got carbon in your skin, ain't no difference between you and them Haitians. We the same, nigga. The genetics is what make us the same, not the titles. That's separation. That's Western philosophy. That's what your slave master brought over here to us. That's not how we live. That's not our ancient ways. We were always people of respect, royalty, dignity. We always wore diamonds and crystals and we created all this stuff. We was never down bad and all. No, we was always a beautiful people. Whether we manifested in the physical or in the astrals. It's a fact. We always adorned ourselves in rubies and gems, and because we understand how to connect with them. First off, that's the reason we did it. They came and tried to mock us and do it to just wear jewelry, and then after they enslaved us, they taught us that form of wearing it. The whole wearing of jewelry comes from us originally wearing crystals to connect. Go back and look at any tribe, they was adorned. We was never down bad. Never. Until they took everything from us. So, the greatest rise of all time to ever come against them since they have landed in recent time was the Haitian Revolution. This is why they give the Haitians a hard time to this day. But when the Haitians rose, or when any of your ancestors rose, we were able to rise because it was always the divine feminine energy connected with her divine masculine energy, and the divine masculine energy connected with his divine feminine energy, and we rose as one. We can never rise if the tie has been severed. That is the heart of the problem with our species today.
You have to do the corn before you take it to the mill.
Well, you first have to shuck it. Next, you have to shell it like that. And then, in other words, when you're done shell it, then you put in they have a sift at the mill. If you want to sift it, you put it in there, and the electric sifter will clean it for you. And then you put it in the hopper in the ground kettle to get meal, all grits. And they got one mill there, which is a grits mill. It gives you coarse grits, fine grits, the bran, and some meal. They go 4 ways, depending on how you feel about it. This is the way we have the corn. We usually have a sheller, but we can use it with our hand or either a washboard. And it's not hard to shell if it's real dry. That's the way we do it. Come on out here, let me show you where this corn comes from. Would you care to see?
Sure.
Take off the corn, you can shell it like that, make meal. Take this down, this is the meal part of it. It's very good to have. Grits oatmeal, come from the mill, water ground mill. I've known it, been there I was 8 years old. I'm 61 now. still eating cornbread and grits. It's very good to have. You care for a quarter meal?
Take a DNA test, they say, as if spitting in a tube will tell indigenous people who they are. Let's be clear. DNA tests are not ancient wisdom. They're not sacred. They're not a mic drop moment. They're a colonial tool. The first consumer DNA test wasn't even sold until 2001. DNA technology itself, not developed until the 1980s. And standardized birth certificates? Those didn't even exist in the US until the early 1900s. Meanwhile, the bloodlines of indigenous people in the Americas have existed for thousands of years, long before any lab, barcode, or database was ever created. Indigenous people existed long before DNA labs, long before paper records, long before colonizers needed to measure and label them. So why is this a problem? Because by the time the colonial tools arrived, the erasure had already happened. Tribes were renamed, families were reclassified, records were destroyed, languages were beaten out, ceremonies were demonized or outlawed. The indigenous were labeled colored, Negro, freedmen, African American, regardless of who they actually were. And now, after they burned the books and the memory, after they destroyed the lineages, after they cut the tongue from the mouths of the indigenous, they now want them to prove themselves with the very system that did the erasing. That's the trap, because DNA tests don't reveal origin. They show similarity. Your DNA sample is compared to whatever's already in the database, and if your bloodline isn't there, it guesses. Let me break it down. If a tiger takes a DNA test, but the system only holds samples from leopards and lions, that tiger's results will say 60% leopard, 40% lion. But it's not either. It's a tiger. It just wasn't in the system. That's exactly what's happening to indigenous people. You're not seeing truth. You're seeing a reroute. You're seeing the results of who they included and who they didn't. Even Ancestry.com and 23andMe admit it. Their websites say, in writing, for entertainment purposes only. So what exactly are people trusting? If they want to talk similarity, cool. The Genetic Literacy Project confirms Native American DNA is most closely related to indigenous Siberians. So if we're all just playing the match game, tell those Siberian Huskies to mush their way back to the tundra. Because despite all the mocking, the gaslighting, the twisting, and the suppressing of truth, they refuse to face. They want your rhythm, but not your blues. They want your cornbread, your collard greens with smoked turkey necks, but not the fire. They want your root work, your aura, your energy, your magic, your memory, but none of the responsibility and none of the accountability. And then they turn around and say, prove who you are. Baby, you were erased by paper, not by blood. And paper lies. But blood remembers. So no, this isn't cosplay, this is resurrection. And if a Siberian Husky tells you to take a DNA test again, tell them to howl at the moon and sit this one out. Because the real ones are reclaiming the fire.
Why does not America look like Dubai and Germany? And why doesn't America look like Russia and Persia? And where the f is the money going? There should be grapes, turnips, vegetables, everything on the streets every day for the homeless to eat. You're making us pay for water, you son of a... You're making us pay for grapes, apples, things that God gave us for free. Ha! Ha! Da, 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 bosha. You will burn in hell when I'm through with you. You will not be allowed in my Father's house. At all. At all.
Yo, somebody's been lying. But we're about to get to the bottom of it. Something's just not adding up. They told us in school that the slaves ran north for freedom. But it just ain't sitting right with me. We've all heard the fascinating Underground Railroad stories, right? The stories of freedom and running and finding your way, following stars to get to the north. Nah. This is deeper meaning to all this. This is the farmland of America. And what they were really doing is they were pushing you into the wilderness and into the cities. Alright? They were getting you away from the oil. They were getting you away from the farmland. So as we're all aware of, in school they tell us that slavery ended in 1865. Alright, well, slavery ended in 1865. That's interesting because this is the reconstruction of the Constitution in Louisiana. Okay? Just 3 years later? And this right here is Lieutenant Governor O.J. Dunn. And the Lieutenant Governor is the highest officer of state right after the governor, okay? So you're telling me 3 years after slavery, right? All these so-called slaves just took over the whole entire Louisiana Congress, right? All the way up to Lieutenant Governor. Well, those gentlemen were supposed to meet, right, at the Mechanics Institute. Unfortunately, a riot took place and people were unalived, right? All because of what they were trying to do. And if you really look at the timeline, it seems less like there was slavery happening and more like there were wars going on over the land throughout all this timeline. It just ain't sitting right with me. Watch this. They weren't just getting you away from the farmland and the oil and things like that. They were also getting you away from the medicine because the medicine was in those same lands where your ancestors were, alright? And if you've read my book, Somebody's Been Lying, A Great American Deception, then you are well aware of the meaning behind culture. They were stealing your culture when they sent you to the west and to the north, right? Culture is a direct connection to medicine since medicine deals with plants and herbs and culture deals with preparing the earth for crops, right? I also suggested that everyone should do their genealogy. And if you did, I am confident that many of you found farmers and landowners. Book reference. Alright, culture. So what is culture? The tilling of land, act of preparing the earth for crops. Okay? Book reference. You weren't running north. They were pushing you north with violence. All you had to do was put the puzzle pieces together and everything will add up just right. They also tricked you with propaganda in the hopes of making it to be a big star, right? If you travel out west or if you travel up north, right, to the big cities to become a superstar. Watch this.
Black families were excluded from buying homes.
We have been crammed into ghettos.
They put us in the hood.
They put us in the hood. When the white folks took us out of slavery, they put us in the hood.
Who put us in the hood?
You put us in the ghetto together.
Put us in the ghetto.
They put us in the ghetto and put us at the bottom.
The history of black families being excluded from home ownership.
I have a book back here where it shows very beautiful houses built by black hands in black neighborhoods in 1910. This book was written by Booker T. Washington in 1912, and he's documenting black neighborhoods and black suburban communities springing up all across the South. Were these folks crammed in ghettos? Can we be real for one moment here? To the extent that an adult human being is crammed into this place or the other, it's because they chose to do that. In 1940, there were more blacks living in rural and suburban communities than in urban cities and government housing projects. To the extent that you did have blacks migrating to these urban areas, it was due in part to marketing that was being circulated by communist propagandists in newspapers like the Pittsburgh Courier or the Daily Worker that were promising union jobs and higher wages in the North. Many of the blacks would go on to admit that instead of finding jobs, all they found were bread lines.
Louisiana, the only thing you have to say yes or no, sir, back there. But I'd rather say yes and no and live comfortable than to live in the slums and you can say yes and no.
The point here is that if it is true that a person is crammed into a slum, it is only after they have personally made the decision to fall for the socialist programs that are being pushed by politicians and activists. You cannot expect luxury when you subordinate yourself to a government project. Let that be a lesson to you when you listen to all the grandiose promises that Kamala Harris is making.
I could be wrong, but if you ask me,
down to the Grand Canyon.
One of Kincaid's most amazing things he said in this article, and I won't read the whole thing to you, was whoever was here had an amazing ability for metallurgy. This is, you might recognize this is the jackal-headed god Anubis. This particular statue is in the Smithsonian. Dr. Laney said it, it's verified. It's hardened copper. It's copper. Wait a minute, they're not supposed to know about hardening copper back then. They did here in the American continent. Anubis, the jackal-headed god. If you understand Egyptology, this is the god that does shape-shifting. He appears, and you know the Navajo, not the Navajo, the Paiute Indians call shape-shifting, they call them Anupites. I have Paiute Indian friends who witnessed shape-shifting, and they call it Anupites, Anupites, Anupites. Hey, it's so phonetically similar to Anubis, it's not even funny. Just coincidence. This one, ooh. Anybody recognize that sitting position? Okay, that's a lotus position. That is solid gold. And see around the base and the pedestal? It connects Indonesian and Hinduism to the whole message of spiritualism. That's what's amazing about this. It's not their God. In the article, Kincaid said this is their God they worshipped. I don't think so, because there's no evidence in the hieroglyphics that this is their God. It's part of an energy situation that they were working with. Energy fields. The lotus position and the flames coming out behind it, it's enlightenment. It's how you can meditate and open up your third eye, your pineal. It's not about religion. It's about connecting to source. Does that make sense? Thousands and thousands of these polished urns filled with all manner of artifacts. Now you kind of know why the Egyptian government wanted these. You know, it's ours. It ties into the pharaohs. Guess what was in most of these urns? Anybody want to guess? Dirt? Guts? Some were, absolutely. They were disemboweled. But a lot of them contained written papyrus scroll material. Whoa. Do you know what Kincaid was saying now? This is this is world changing. Hey, I don't know about you out there, but I kind of feel ripped off. What are we paying taxes for? To have this stuff hidden from us? I feel like I've been hijacked. And I got something inserted without Vaseline. I'm sorry, that's just me. Now, this is amazing. Room after room of mummified warriors. Egyptian warriors. See how high and how tall this chamber is? These mummified remains was put in a standing upright position on a stone ledge with carvings come out. And the inscriptions above that with their names. The children and the women were mummified. Okay? This is an example of the sarcophagus of an infant, mummified and wrapped in the chamber. But the amazing thing is the wood. How many of you have been to Egypt? How many pine trees are on the hills above Egypt? There are cedars in Lebanon. Guess what? Analyze this wood and guess what it's made of? Ponderosa pines from the north rim of Fredonia, the Grand Canyon. What's amazing, the infants were all put into these carved Ponderosa pine sarcophagi, but what the story you don't know about is a lot of the common women and children sarcophagi in Egypt are made of the same Ponderosa pine.
Oh, I get it. I think I figured it out. You know, our opinion never mattered. They never cared what we had to say. You notice how they all in our comments now. They all in our little business now. They mad about us talking now. They never cared about what we had to say. But see, they know we know the truth now. They mad we know the truth now. They mad that they time ran out. They mad that them little stunts they used to pull ain't gonna work no more. They mad because we don't believe what they tell us. We go get the knowledge for ourselves. They mad because we don't care what they tell us. We go get it for ourselves. That's why they mad. They mad because they know we stronger. They mad because they know we coming together spiritually, mentally. The last will be physically. I know why they mad. Because it's over.
Even on Superman's chest, it was an actual pyramid turned upside down with a snake in the form or shape of an S. See, they switched that whole thing around. It's like, wait a minute, his name was Kal-El. That's a Hebrew name. He gets power from the sun, which requires melanin. That means you have to be black.
And the superheroes, they are co-opted from African heroes, African deities, and African gods. They've always done that. They've always co-opted a lot of our culture as far as heroes. And when you look at a lot of these comic book characters, you will see an African influence.
I like to look at the comic book character who is perhaps most popular, the most recognized comic book character, even to those who are not actually into comic books. And that would have to be Superman. Superman is clearly a sun god. It's a sun god myth. He gets his power from the sun. And in fact, as things move forward and this mythos around Superman moves forward, some people might be surprised that the patron deity on Krypton, the place where Superman comes from, his name is Ra. Clearly they're referencing Ra or Re, the Kemetic deity.
When you look at a lot of white superheroes, a lot of them are based on the myth of the Norse god or the Aryan god or the white supremacist deities like Superman. A lot of that came about during the eugenics movement.
I hope your favorite drink is always miraculously in your refrigerator.
I hope whenever you check your bank account, you got more money in it than you actually expected to be in that motherfucker.
I hope every time you go pay your utilities, that shit say zero balance due.
I hope that every time you crank your car up, it's a full tank of gas in it.
I hope that every time you reach into your purse, wallet, or pocket, you have more than enough money to get what you need.
Gente, it's cartel. But Uncle Tony told y'all and showed y'all all the proof about who the real indigenous aboriginal people here in North America are. And people tried to shun and throw them off and backstab and trick stab and thought they was trying to contradict everything that I brought out and was saying. Well. Guess what? Everything Uncle Tony said was true. We are the Aboriginal indigenous North Americans. And it's people like us down south too. You know that, right? And that's that big reason why Uncle Tony keeps saying, put your butt in that corner.
It is important to note that the label black was not used by the U.S. Census as a means to categorize an individual only by their skin complexion, and neither was white, because if you were labeled white by the U.S. Census, then it means that you could have European, Asian, Arabic, or African origins, exposing that you do not have to carry pale skin as your complexion to be categorized as white. Did you notice that if an individual has an African origin, then the U.S. Census will label them as white? What does this mean? It means that a person can be darker than dark complected and remain labeled white as their race category, exposing the labels black and white as a status with the government and not an actual color of skin.
Crazy, man, just crazy, just wow, that's just wow. Like it's truly just crazy. The more that you seem to find out, the more people tell you that you're crazy and that you're wrong about it, but then it's like, but you're not giving me facts to show that I'm wrong. You're not proving me wrong or anything. Like everything that you guys give, we go and look up and then rebuttal. I'm not saying just me, mostly people in these videos. Like people tell me I'm wrong, I go look it up and I find rebuttals to it. And not the stuff that I'm showing, like the stuff that y'all saying that we're wrong about and trying to prove that you guys are right about is being debunked. It's like the whitewash history is over. That age of that era is over. You can't lie about it anymore because it's easy to be exposed. But hey, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe for it, brother, because you know every little bit helps, and we thank you guys so much. Hey, go ahead and leave a comment too, because that really helps us out also. But I've been your boy Azro. This has been another episode of Azro Reacts, and I'll check you guys next time. Deuces!